welcome to Logan Sounds Off. Today I am interviewing Pat Carty. Pat, how are you?
I'm very good, Logan. Thanks for having me. How are you doing yourself?
I'm brilliant, and the pleasure is all mine to have you on my podcast. I can't wait to start talking to you. And for those who don't know you, which is very little,
Right.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I do some work as a journalist, and I go on the radio a bit. So as a journalist, I write for Hot Press magazine, and in the last while I've been writing for the Business Post and the Sunday Times, and I've also been in the Independent and the Examiner and the Irish Times as well. And radio, I used to be on Dave Fanning's show a lot. Obviously, that's gone for the moment. I turn up on Arena. I turn up on RTÉ Arena now and again, talking about books and music. And let me see what else. The Hard Shoulder on Newstalk. I used to do Tom Dunn's show the odd time. A few other ones, and I have my own show on Dublin City FM, and that's about it, I think.
So you've got a very broad, eclectic kind of parts of your career, and obviously you've got you've got a very large background of media and of journalism, and also of music and books. So you're very much into the arts and writing about the arts. So I wanted to ask, growing up, asking you, because I've grown up with different types of music. What type of music did you listen to, or what kind of songs did you listen to when you were growing up as a child?
That's a very good question. Let me see. When I first started getting into it seriously, I suppose, when I was maybe a small bit older than you are now, it would have been the 1980s. So I would have been listening to stuff that was on the radio, but I got into, I suppose the first bands that I got into that I would still listen to were people like U2 and the Waterboys, because it was around that time when they were having their big albums, you know?
Yeah.
And through them then, and through others, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, I kind of started going back and getting into older music. I don't know whether people would call it roots music, but I started listening to a lot of older rock and roll. Fell in love with the Rolling Stones in a big way, and then they led me back to soul music and blues and gospel and country music, and a lot of reggae as well. But that was it. All happened bit by bit, you know, as it was going along. But that was the kind. I wasn't really crazy about an awful lot of stuff that I was hearing on the radio at the time. I wasn't. So there was my friends would be into bands, and I wouldn't really get it, you know.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting, because I feel the exact same way. And you were saying there, which I thought it was very interesting, with the Rolling Stones, that it led on to blues and reggae and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think of the Rolling Stones, like the song "Gimme Shelter" is kind of like blues, and it has a bit of a reggae vibe as well. So I see what you mean. So as then a child, obviously, there you explained that you were very much into music. Did you go to many gigs as a child?
Not an awful lot, no, because I grew up in. First of all, it was the 1980s, right? So it was a different world altogether. And I grew up in a small town in the middle of Ireland. So there wasn't an awful lot of gigs to go to. The first big gig I went to was U2, actually, in Crow Park. That would have been 1987. So it would have been around 15, I think.
That's an amazing concert to go to.
It was fantastic. I mean, it really was. And I remember it well. Getting the bus up and everything. And then the same summer I went to see David Bowie in Slane. That wasn't so great, but it was still cool to be at it. And let me see. So you used to go to, like, there was a place up the road from where I lived where bands would turn up the odd time. So I saw people like Something Happens and Hot House Flowers there and things like that. You know, the Irish bands that were big at the time who sometimes would come in, but it wasn't really till later on, till I left home, that I started going to gigs a lot, because there just wasn't many gigs where I was. So I went to some, but there wasn't a huge amount. I used to go up on a Saturday sometimes. Sorry to interrupt you. I used to go up on a Saturday. Used to get the train up sometimes on a Saturday to Dublin, and I'd go record shopping, and then I'd go to, they used to have gigs at 3:00 in the afternoon on Saturday in a place called McGonagall's, which is long gone now. And so I saw bands like Stars of Heaven and people like that. You would have never heard them. Stars of Heaven and people like that there. But that's used to go up. Don't think I even told my parents really where I was going. I kind of used to just disappear for the day. And no, don't do that. That's not good advice.
Oh no, I know.
But, and then I'd come back and I'd be back at about 6 or 7 in the evening. I'd take to be a 5 o'clock train or something like that. But yeah, that's what we used to do. Yeah, or I used to do.
I've heard of McGonagall's, and then you went to see U2 as your first concert. Yeah. And that must have inspired you for a lot. Actually, I'd like to say well done on the recent interview with The Edge.
Thank you very much.
For anyone who hasn't been looking at Pat's stuff, he has recently done an interview with The Edge, which is very good. So you should definitely check that out.
Definitely, yeah, check that out, yeah.
Another kind of side of you, which I think is something that is very interesting and to do with arts again, is books. And I am very much into books. What kind of books did you read, if you read much at all?
I did. I read a lot when I was a child. My father was an English teacher, you know, so there's a lot of books in the house. Now, my mother was no slouch when it came to books either, and so there's a lot of stuff in the house. But what did I read when I was a kid? I don't know. I read lots of stuff. I read all the James Bond books, though you can't read them anymore. And what else? I don't know. When I was younger, Alfred Hitchcock's Three Investigators. I don't know, stuff like that. And then when I was getting a bit older, then as a teenager, I was reading the classics and all that because, as I said, we're in the house. But I don't know. And then like just like with the music stuff. I mean, if people in interviews that I admired recommended a book, so I ended up reading stuff like Kerouac and William. That was good, but William Burroughs and stuff like that, which wasn't great, I didn't think. But all that kind of thing. So being influenced again by the interviews I was reading with people, and then they'd say, like Bono used to be great for that. He especially around the time of the Joshua Tree, he'd be talking about people like Flannery O'Connor and Norman Mailer and people like that. And that was great because I went off looking for that stuff then, and I'd read it because I was impressionable, like any young person is. So I'd go off and read stuff like that. So that's how I get into a lot of that stuff. And then through him, then Norman Mailer and the New Journalism and Hunter Thompson, all that stuff. I read all that when I was young enough.
Yeah, so you had a lot of different books that you read, like James Bond. That's like, I haven't seen many of the movies, but everything that I've seen of James Bond is so cool. So that's definitely
well. See, that's the thing. That's the thing at the moment, Logan. It's in the news at the moment. They're talking about that they might edit. Sorry, that's probably me. They're talking about they might edit some of the James Bond stuff because a lot of the books, and I was reviewing a book last year, the year before, which was Anthony Horowitz, and it was a James Bond book, you know.
With the Mind to Kill, is that it?
That's the one. That's the very one.
I've seen that all over the place.
That's really good, and but it takes place in between two of the original Bond books in the time frame in between them. So when I was reviewing it, I thought, well, maybe I should have a look at those books again, you know. And so I did. And some of the language in it and some of the racial attitudes and the sexual attitudes in it leave a bit to be desired, all right? That's fair enough. But so there's talk about them editing that. Now, I think that's a terrible idea. I don't think you should do that with anything.
No.
But I can see where they're coming from in one.
I definitely see where they're coming from. But a book is a book is a book. You can't edit it.
Censorship is wrong.
Then again, sometimes if it was censored, I wouldn't be making a whole fuss about it. I'd see where they're coming from, so I wouldn't be really that annoyed because you could kind of see it coming. But
well, you can always put if you don't like a book, I find if you don't like a book, you can always put it down.
Exactly. That's something that's taken me a long time to realize, that I'd always commit to a book. For example, I'm making a big commitment with The Lord of the Rings at the moment.
Oh, I didn't really like that.
I actually I'm quite enjoying it. It's an odd, he's an odd author, J.R.R. Tolkien, but I used to read full books that I wouldn't really like. So eventually I kind of said to myself, do you know what? I'm not going to read the rest of this.
Yeah.
And I got to read way better stuff, so I can see where you're coming from. So
Well, I think that you can get to like that Lord of the Rings. I remember I tried that when I was a couple of years older than you. And this is a long time before there was any movies of it or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
I think I got to within about 100 pages of the end of it. So I got through whatever number of pages that is. That must be 6 or 7. I don't have a clue.
I'd say 900.
Yeah, I got to about 100 pages at the end of it, and I just went, you know what? I don't like this. And I just put it down. And I still haven't read the last 100 pages. So the last 100 pages, you can tell me when you finish it. They might be marvelous. But in the 37 years, 38 years since that happened, I still haven't read the last 100.
Then again, I've read like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
I read one of them, yes.
At the end, though, there's always like a war scene or something, and that can take up a movie or two. And I never like those kind of.
Well, I went to see those Lord of the Rings movies. I thought they were good. I enjoyed them.
Now, the Lord of the Rings movies is a whole different thing. They're brilliant.
They're good, yeah.
But you've like made an astonishing amount of book reviews, and you've read a lot of books. As we were just discussing there.
Well, so, they pay me money. They pay me money for it, you know.
Well, I know that. So you get the enjoyment and the money. But this is where I wanted to ask, because obviously you were always into music and books, and that's grand. But you, as a child, I presume you didn't really think about journalism. So I wanted to ask, how did you get into journalism? Because it's something really that you don't plan a career for it, you kind of fall into it. A lot of people have said to me.
Okay, well, two things. First of all, I'm not sure I really have a career, and you'll see why in a minute. But when I was a teenager and when I was in university, it was something I wanted to do, and I did a bit of writing for college papers and things like that. And but I didn't really pursue it. I tried to get into courses, you know. And I couldn't get into them. I did, like when I did the Leaving Cert, I didn't do a good enough Leaving Cert to get in. And then I tried to get into postgraduate ones and I couldn't get in, or for whatever reason. And so I kind of didn't pursue it and I didn't push it. And life just kept going and other things happened and all that. So I didn't run after it like I should have. And that was a big mistake. And I say to I have children now, I have teenage children now, and I say to them, just do what you want to do. Don't worry about anything else. Try and do what you want. And this is my advice as an old man I give to anyone. You can just as easily fail at what you want to do as fail at stuff you don't want to do. So you might as well try and do what you want. And
that is probably one of the best kind of philosophical. Is that philosophical? God, that's an awkward word.
Philosophical.
Philosophical. God.
No, well, I mean, I just think it's,
my pronunciation.
It's easy for me to say that now. I didn't know that 30 years ago, and I should have done that. And so getting into it. Sorry, to answer the other part of your question. About just over 6 years ago, or a bit more, I was friends with I still am very close friends with a person called Roisin Dwyer, and at the time Roisin was the commissioning editor, which means the person who actually asked people to write stuff for Hot Press. And we were pals. We were hanging around, and in 2016 was the year that David Bowie and Leonard Cohen and Prince and George Martin and all these people all died.
Yeah, and Alan Rickman.
Rickman, yeah.
Tons of people died that year. Tons of people.
Merle Haggard died the same year. Great country songwriter. But anyway, the thing was, because those people all meant so much to me, maybe not Alan Rickman, but the other people meant so much to me, I wrote some stuff about them on Facebook. So I wrote some stuff about them and about things that happened to me with their music. Hard to explain. But anyway, I wrote these things, and Roisin had read them. Excuse me. And one of them was in the journal.ie as well, the thing about George Martin, and she'd read that as well. So she said to me one time, listen, you should try and write for us, for Hot Press, you know. And I was trying to be cool, you know, not go, yeah. I was trying to play it cool, you know, which was stupid.
Casual, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to be casual. Excuse me for wiping my nose. But yeah, she said, why don't you try? And I said, yeah, okay. So what I did was, so she said, do a few things which were basically the things I'd done already, and give them in. And she gave them to Niall Stokes, who's the owner of Hot Press and the editor. And he must have seen something he thought was okay. He said, well, okay, let him start off with a few album reviews. And that's what happened. So the first one was in February of 2017. Excuse me. So that was the first thing I did. So I wasn't doing it before that at all for anybody. So I don't have any, and this is a bad thing, I don't have any training in it. I don't have anything like that. I don't have any qualifications as a journalist. I don't have any experience before that.
Do not say that's a bad thing. That's,
well, I don't know. Excuse me.
That's one of the greatest. Oh, sorry.
You're all right. Just blow me nose. Keep talking.
Okay. Like, that's one of the greatest things ever, because that means it comes naturally.
Well, I don't know about that.
I mean, that means you're on Hot Press. Don't be so hard on yourself. If you have no training in it, and you did a Facebook post, and immediately a guy in Hot Press said, "Do you know what?
Well, I have a degree in English and all that kind of stuff.
Let's get him in." That's just natural, and it shows that you put in the hard work. So I definitely wouldn't say that you having no kind of courses on it bad, because
I've worked very hard in the last 6 years.
Exactly, you've obviously put some serious work into it. So it's not. It's
not really. It's work, but it's also something I like doing. You know what I mean? And that's a big.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it.
It's not bad quality of work. It's brilliant quality. Like, I've read some of your stuff and it's brilliant, but it really is. You have experience in it now, so you've definitely got a good idea of what you're doing. Especially now that you were immediately, like you said, about George Martin and stuff, and you had to start doing album reviews, and then eventually as well book reviews. And I wanted to ask you, how do you what's the difference between doing an album review and a book review for you? Because I'd say other reviewers might find there's no differences. Other reviewers might have tons of differences because of the way they review. So I'd like to ask you, what are your differences and quirks between the two?
That's a really good question. Okay, well, albums don't have a plot, first of all. They don't have characters, they don't have
that's a very good start to that, actually. Yeah.
Well, like, music is like, writing about music is it's actually tricky enough, because trying to describe music is kind of silly, really, when you think about it, because it's there. Just go and listen to it. So having some fella or some woman tell you, oh, well, I heard this and that, like, it doesn't, because, like, you might listen to a record and hear it in a totally different way than I would, but then that's the same with a book, I suppose, as well. You might enjoy a book like, I finished a review just before I was talking to you, and I won't tell you what it was, but it was terrible. The book was awful.
Really?
Oh, Janie, it was terrible. It was really bad. And I sent it in to an editor there, and they might send it back to me and say the review was too negative. I don't know, because it just was very bad.
Do you know, if they bring it back, it's too negative, then that's not a proper book review?
No. That's not necessarily the case, because editors do that because they don't think the review is well written enough, and they might be right.
Sometimes, true. That's true.
That's their job, and so that was, and then like that was bad. But then a review went up yesterday for Margaret Atwood's latest collection. Margaret Atwood is the person who wrote that TV series. What's it called? Handmaid's Tale. It's probably a bit old for you, probably a bit age restricted for you. But it's she's a great writer. She's really, really good. And this short story collection is fantastic, right? And it's great. And it was a joy to read it. And you just thought, this is brilliant, and that's great. And what she did there. And there's a thing about, her husband passed away a few years ago, so a few of the stories are about that. And it's really well written. So you just see the differences between the two. And and this other one that I was talking about is just poor. Reviewing albums then is like, sometimes you get to review albums and they're just bad, they're just bad. And especially when you're doing Irish ones, Irish ones are just as capable of being bad as anyone else's. And you can't really take it easy on them, because Was it George Byrne, who's this journalist from years ago, who's passed away now, and he said, I think something like, listen, once you release an album, you're competing with Radiohead, so you got to expect to be treated in the same way. And so they are. Sorry, I'm not answering your question really. They are different.
You definitely are. You're just answering it intricately.
No, I don't know. I don't know what the short answer is. They are different.
There is no short answer.
Well, hold on. Then I'm not doing my job properly. There should be. That's what editors give out to me about. Where's the short answer, Pat? Let me see. They're different things. Music makes you feel in a different way. Music should be about the heart and the soul, right? You shouldn't really have to think too much about music. I think when you have to think too much about music, it's not very good because you're not feeling it properly.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas books, you can certainly feel emotions from books, but you have to think about what's going on.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you do book reviews more up here and you do music reviews more here, or wherever my heart should be. Here. Yeah. There's a short answer for you.
That's a very good short answer, and you've explained a lot there for that answer. And I just want to say, if there's any musicians listening, there's a good album title for you, Heart and Soul. Such a simple album title. But I just think that's very interesting because music, the thing is, music comes from the heart and the text in a book comes from the heart. So you should treat it with your heart. So that is very much something that you need to take into consideration as a reviewer, and you definitely do that.
Well, you have to, sorry to interrupt you. When you're reviewing, I think the important thing is, or one of the important things is, and I'm no expert, but you have to put yourself into it, right? You can't be trying to give the opinion that you think people want. Just give your own opinion and be honest.
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to put yourself in it and put your own voice in it. When I see ones that don't do that, I think you can tell straight away. They're trying to second guess what they think people want to hear.
Yeah.
It's all very middle of the road and all that. I don't really see the point in them. Now, I'm not naming names or pointing fingers at anyone because loads of people do it better than me, but a lot better than me. But that's the way I approach it anyway. Definitely.
Yeah, that's that. I would approach it that way as well. And I think reviews can be quite hard, or they could be quite easy. But something actually that we're doing now, I find sometimes quite hard to prepare for, and sometimes quite easy to prepare for, is an interview. And that's totally another side. So I'm not even going to ask, how does that compare to books and album reviews? So
interviews are hard. Interviews are hard.
Yeah, and interviews are a whole different thing. So I want to ask you a different question.
Sure, ask as many as you want.
If you've had a lot of interviews.
I've had a few, yeah.
Something that a lot of people don't ask, and definitely should ask, is there any interviewees, that you've been surprised by who are so down to earth? Because there are a lot of people like that who you expect, is this going to be trouble? And they're really not. Is there anybody who you felt were like that?
We're down to earth. Well, most of them are. I've never really had. Well, I have had one or two bad ones. I'm not talking about how they ended up the way I wrote them or anything like that. They could all be bad. I'm talking about the talking to people. I've had one or two that have been difficult and surly and bad, but most of the people have been very, very nice. Like you mentioned the Edge there. I spoke to him last week, the week before. Excuse me. And he was just really a really nice guy. I'd met him once before, about 5 years ago, but he was just really nice, down to earth,
Yeah.
And he was careful about what he was saying, because he's done this kind of thing before, and he
it's not his first rodeo.
Yeah, he wanted to talk about what he wanted to talk about, but he answered my questions, and he was very down to earth. And then other people I'm trying to think of the bigger names. Who was Paul Weller was great when I interviewed him.
Yeah, like Paul Weller. I'm actually working on an album review for him at the moment.
Which one?
On Sunset.
Oh, that's a great record.
I bought that on an album.
That's a great record.
Oh, it's one of the greatest records.
And that's
ever.
the one I interviewed him about. I interviewed him when he
Yeah,
released.
Paul Weller is amazing. And then immediately a year later, Fat Pop, True Meanings, just 2 years before that, and then an orchestrated songbook as well. He always has stuff on the go. He has never had one bad album.
He's great live, and he's
a great guy as well.
Well, he was so nice that we were on the phone. We were being interviewed on the phone, or I was interviewing him on the phone, should I say? And had 25 minutes or whatever it was, which is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Yeah. But the phone disconnected twice in the interview. I think it was just my phone or just where I live, and he rang me back twice. So I was very surprised. I was delighted. I was very surprised at that. Now, because he was in wherever he was, London or wherever. I don't know where he was. But the fact that he took the time to go, well, I give your man a chance. That's probably not his fault. And he rang my number.
That's just an incredible.
Well, it's great. Yeah, nice guy.
It also must have given you a very nice feeling knowing that somebody like Paul Weller is calling you back to give you a chance to do an interview with them. That's an incredible sense of accomplishment.
Let's not get carried away. He was doing his job, and he wasn't thinking of, oh, dear old Pat, my friend, and he was thinking like that journalist guy. And but he was great, and we were talking about music, and we were talking about we were talking about reggae and mod stuff in the 60s. But see, the thing is as well, when you're doing interviews, I think anyway, when a person gets you have to do the homework beforehand, right? That's very important.
Yes, research is key.
Absolutely.
Fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you're talking to people like him or loads of other people that I've talked to, they know pretty quickly whether you know what you're talking about or not.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you haven't taken the time to do the work, or if you're not interested enough to know the stuff, then you can't expect them to be interested in talking to you. And you know what I mean?
It takes two to tango.
Yeah, but you have to do the homework. And then the other thing I try to do, I don't know if I do it, is I don't like to have 100 questions written out, so you're just waiting for them to stop talking and you move on to the next question. I try to get it doesn't always work.
A flow of conversation.
That's it. And you have to, and it's important, I think, to react to what they're saying, not just wait for them to stop talking so you can ask the next thing. React to it. And that way
shows, as I would say, the highest form of disrespect during an interview is to go, okay, next one. Yeah, have a flow and conversation and engage with the interviewee is definitely key, and gives also the interviewee a sense of kind of, oh wow, this guy is really researched and this guy wants to know more.
But also, most importantly, it makes for some better stuff at the end. So when you go to write it, hopefully you'll have something that's not quite the same as the 400 other interviews the person's after doing over the last couple of days,
Yeah.
So with these bigger acts, like I did one with Neil Jordan once. The film director, do you know?
Do you know what? I probably wouldn't realize it now, but would he have directed any films I wouldn't maybe know?
Michael Collins, or maybe it's a bit older, an older audience.
No, I know of the film Michael Collins. So then, he must be a very good director, because my parents watched Michael Collins and they said it's brilliant. Yeah, but anyways, go on, sorry.
Good. But he's a novelist as well, and he had his last novel was about 1798 rebellion in Ireland. And,
wow, that actually part of the 1798 rebellion took place here where I live in Clane.
That's right. And but I had to do a lot of research for that, because it's been a long time since I did history in college as well, but that's a long time ago, and so I had to do a lot of research for that. But he was very, very nice, and that was during lockdown, and I was sitting in this very chair, and he was sitting where you are. And but the fact that I had some idea what, I'd read the book obviously as well, but the fact that I had some idea what he was talking about meant I could react to what he was saying. I'm not saying the
Yeah.
questions were brilliant or anything like that, but at least I wasn't going, what the hell are you talking about? And I think
Yeah, you had
I
some
think you get a
idea.
better,
Yeah.
you get a better interview. My point is, I think that the people who are being interviewed, I think they prefer. I think they prefer that than you sitting there going, "I don't know what you're talking about." Explain
Yeah,
everything.
something that I think of.
Did
An
you see the
inter
Hugh Grant interview at the Oscars the other night? Did you see that?
No, actually,
Okay, well
I
then
didn't.
anyone watching this,
I didn't watch the Oscars.
they said he was very rude to this woman who was interviewing him. Excuse me, but I don't think he was. She was very ill prepared. Her questions were poor, I thought. Now maybe he could have been more polite. Okay, fair enough. But I think in that situation, it just it proves what I'm saying. You know, you have to. It was Dave Fanning who told me that. Dave Fanning said, "Look, you got to do the homework, or you can forget it. There's no point."
Well, like if anyone was telling me to do that, it would be Dave Fanning, because he is the original. Absolutely. He is the original Irish interviewer, and you have interviewed some seriously big names as well. So you obviously know that, but something as well that you might encounter not only is doing the homework, but is your nerves before an interview. Has there anybody you've been very nervous to interview as well?
Well, you get a bit angsty in front of in before them all, really. When I was starting off, the first ones I was doing, like obviously because I really didn't know what I was doing, and you know, whatever about now, I certainly didn't then. But you do. I mean, even that one with the Edge there a couple of weeks ago, like you're going, all right, well, you know, you're thinking about it. This is the hour before it, say, right? And you're thinking about it, right? You have some idea what you're going to ask, what you're going to talk about. You've done some research. You've looked into what's going on, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, and then with someone like that, you're thinking, wow, that's the guy I went to see when I was 15 in Croke Park.
Yeah, that's another feeling that you go.
Yeah, that's
I presume you'd feel a bit then more relaxed around him, because, you know, I saw him in concert. That you'd be able, and then if you've met him before, you'd obviously be a bit more relaxed under the Edge.
The time I met him before was in Tulsa in Oklahoma, right? And this, I don't mean to be dropping names here, but I was out in Tulsa covering the opening night of U2's last tour. So, and it was one of the first big things I ever did, and we're having dinner in this restaurant, and then the PR people said, right, well, what's going to happen is when dinner is finished, Adam Clayton and the Edge are going to come in for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and they're going to talk to everybody and maybe have a drink, and then they're going to head off, because their concert was the next day, so they were working. So it's kind of sitting there, and then the door opens and the two men walk in, and just for about 2 seconds I sat there and went, Janie Mac, that's Adam Clayton and the Edge, you know.
Yeah,
so I kind of sat there, and then
they
I
have a bit of an effect when they walk into the room, don't they?
And then I said, right, well, you have a job to do. Come on, do the job. And so went and talked to him, and it was the same thing. So you still, I don't know if nerves is nerves, I suppose, is the right word.
Anxiety
but you want to,
is another one.
You just want it to be. You want it to be good. It's not so much getting the person to like you, because that's not really what it's about. But getting the person to kind of maybe trust you for 40 minutes or whatever, so they'll actually talk to you and maybe say something to you.
That they'll open up, because that's something that an interviewer's main goal is to help the interviewee open up and tell them all about different things that is very interesting about their life. And obviously, now that you've been talking to the Edge and Paul Weller, and I'm
sure there are plenty of other big ones.
Elvis Costello, like there you go, Elvis Costello. Some really massive, interesting.
Lots of authors, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, you know a lot about this area. So I want to ask,
sure,
if you were to give a tip on reviewing or interviewing, what would it be?
Just try and do it just do it in your own voice. Not even try. Just do it. Don't try to to copy, or try not to anyway, copy other people's style. If you tried to if you were reviewing an album and you tried to review it like Stuart Clark or Tony Clayton Lee, or who else do I think is good? Some of the people in the Irish Times and other publications and Hot Press and all the rest of them, John Maher, people like that, they're all very good, but they're already there. So what's the point in you trying to copy them?
Exactly, because
if they want Stuart Clark to do it, they'll bring Stuart Clark. So if they ask you to do it as yourself.
Then they want you. They don't want a minion of Stuart Clark. They want you. And
try and be interesting. Try and be funny. Being funny always helps if you can manage it. That's it. I mean, doing gigs and stuff like that. That's nobody wants to read a list. Tell us what happened. Tell us how did you feel about it? Tell us
from you,
exactly
yourself. Yeah.
And don't be. I think especially with live reviews, don't be afraid to put yourself in it. You're the one who's there.
Yeah, that's very much true, because I was talking to John Kelly and I said to him, we were talking about this. We were talking about this kind of thing, and he said to me, if there's a chance in life, always take it.
Oh yeah,
because there's a chance that will never come again.
Yeah,
and you've taken that chance a lot of times with tons of musicians, but obviously you haven't interviewed all of the musicians in the world. But if you were to meet any musician, living, dead, who would it be? As my last question, I wanted to ask this.
Okay,
This is always a very difficult question.
No, it's not a difficult one for me.
Wait, really?
Well, there's hundreds of them, but of living musicians, who would I like? I'd like to do an interview, even though as much as I love talking to The Edge, I'd love to do a long interview with Bono about just music. That's something that everybody likes, a talk about just music as two musical friends. But continue, sorry. It's all right. And I'd love to interview Keith Richards or maybe not so much Mick Jagger, because I don't think that'd work, but Keith Richards I'd love to interview. But unfortunately, he has been doing the same interview for about 30 years where he just answers the same question. So someone needs to sit down and ask him some proper questions. I'd love to do that. That'll never happen. Dead people.
Never say that.
Dead
never
people.
Say that.
We tried. We asked him one time, but he didn't do it. And there's another one, Robert Plant. We asked him a few times. He's turned me down a few times. Yeah, I mean, all the people that I love, I mean, a lot of them are dead. Otis Redding, Merle Haggard. I'd love to talk to Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Peter Tosh. I did get to talk to or Gregory Isaacs, Bob Marley. I did get to interview. This is a good one. I got to interview a fella called Toots Hibbert, and Toots Hibbert was the singer with a band called Toots and the Maytals.
Toots and the Maytals, yeah.
Great reggae band, one of the great ones.
Brilliant
records I've been listening to since I was about 15, and so I interviewed him. It was over the phone, but he was great.
Oh my god!
And I talked to him for about 40 minutes, and he was fantastic, and he was funny, and he was great stories and all this, and I was really proud of it, and it was great, and at the end of it, I got to say to him, look, Toots, I might never be talking to you again. I just wanted to tell you how much these records meant to me and continue to mean to me, and he was very gracious about it. He said, well, hopefully we'll get to shake hands one day. And I said, well, that's lovely. And what happened was, I think it was 3 days later, he was dead. So
what?
Well, he died of, I think it was COVID related, but it may have been, I don't know if it was the very last interview he did, but it was definitely one of the last interviews he did, because he was dead that weekend.
That's so upsetting.
Well, it was, but I mean, the thing was, I'm so glad, I was doing a job and I had to write it up and all that. But the fact that I got to sit and talk with him for 40 minutes, this guy whose records I've been listening to since I was a kid, and I still have them, loads of his records. I love Toots and the Maytals, and so stuff like that, that's a real privilege, And it was great. And the fact that this guy that you've been listening to for years turned out to be, when you were talking to him, a really nice guy and really funny and interested.
Yeah.
And, and so that was fantastic. So getting to do that, that's why I do it. Sure, why
That's the meaning of being an
who wouldn't want to do that,
That is a great way to end off with Toots and the Maytowns. I thought I would never hear that on this interview, but wow, such a brilliant guy.
He was fantastic.
He's got like some really good
I
music.
interviewed Chris Blackwell, who's the head of Highland Records, famous guy.
Oh, wow.
Who's U2. And I said we were talking away about something, and he mentioned Toots Hibbert, and I said, "Oh, I interviewed him," and he said, "When?" And I told him when. He said, "Oh, that was just before he died." And I said, "Yeah." And so all Chris Blackwell wanted to talk to me about then for about 10 minutes was, "Oh, what did he say? What did he say? What did he say about this? What did he say about this?" So when that kind of thing happens, it's just
imagine like talking to Chris about Toots and the Maytowns.
Yeah, there you go. And
before they died, that like that. Well, he Toots died. That's like crazy. That's, as Talking Heads would say, once in a lifetime.
Well, put it this way, Logan, right? When I was just a bit older than you, sitting in a bedroom, not unlike that one with guitars behind me and everything like that. And all that, and I'd be sitting in my bedroom doing that. If someone had come along and told me when I was listening to Toots Hibbert that time and said, "Oh, you'll get to interview him, and you'll get to interview him, and someone will give you some money for it. Not an awful lot now, but some money for it." I would have gone like, so why wouldn't I do this? If I can get away with it.
Exactly, because if you're going to meet your heroes and get money for it, you're going to get paid to have some fun. I mean, that's all you'll ever need.
It was a great experience. All that, things like that. It's the same. Talking to the Edge was the same kind of thing. Excuse me. And various other people. Steve Van Zandt is another one that was really good. It's just, sure, it's great. Yeah, of course it is. People say, "Oh, you must have enjoyed that." Of course, I enjoyed it. And even if they turned around and they were awful people, I mean, you still get a kick out of it. I had a great time interviewing Bob Geldof one night. Bob Geldof in his hotel room, we had a great laugh one night. Stuff like that is, sure, it's brilliant.
There's nothing better than a good laugh. So I see.
Well, I mean, it's just that you get to meet these. It's a privilege. It's great.
Yeah.
It really is. John is exactly right. Take the chance. Yeah. And John knows everybody. I'm very jealous of John's phone book, because every time someone comes up, John puts up a picture of himself with them. I don't have any of those, but it's just it's great to be able to do it. And whether I'm any good at it, sure, who cares? I get to do it.
Fair enough. Well, definitely. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast as one of my heroes. It's been brilliant talking to you, and it's been very interesting to learn all these little things, and it's given me a lot of food for thought to think about in the future, and I've learned a lot from the past, I'd say 45 minutes there, so thank you so much.
You're very good at this, and this is a very good interview, and if this is what you want to do, you should take advice from your parents, of course, as well. You shouldn't listen. Yeah. I don't want to get in any trouble with your parents, but go for it, because it's great. I mean, it's to get to do it is it's just great. It really is, it's great. It's great fun.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, just thank you so much. I can't put it into words nearly, but thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to read all the new articles that you're going to be writing soon on your brilliant.
I'm glad somebody's reading them.
They're brilliant. They're brilliant. You really have to stop being so hard on yourself.
Well,
you may be very jealous of John Kelly. You're very alike.
Well, I'll say this. Hold on, I'll say this now. I'll say this now before, and don't cut this out now, right? Just in case John is watching it. I mean, John is all that, and he's a better phone book than me and everything, and he has the big job in RTÉ and everything. But I'm better looking than John, and he knows. And he knows that. He knows that deep down. And John, if you're watching this, I'll always be better looking than you. Just remember that.
And John, if you're watching this, always remember, I'm neutral. I'm not going to take sides.
Just wanted to say that. That's all.
Fair enough. Well, thank you, Pat, for that little part there.
You're welcome. Don't cut that out now. Make sure you leave that bit.
No, I will not. Don't worry. I'll keep that in for some serious controversy. That'll be very fun to watch that go down.
I don't know how the truth can be controversial like that. I don't know. And John knows that. John knows. Trust me, he knows.
Well, we'll see what happens then. Well, thank you so much, Pat, and thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Logan. Thank you very much. And may I say how good this is and what a pleasure it was.
The pleasure is all mine. Bye, Pat.
Okay, Logan, thanks.
Bye.